Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to your full year love and romance 12-month tarot reading interpretation. We are going to be looking at all 12 months in your entire year of 2026. And we are 4 days in. So we are at the very beginning. We get to look at January, February, March, April, May, and on to the end of the year. Now, I want to mention that in this video, I'm going to divide this up into different sections where we can talk about people who are in a relationship currently, and also love and romance for those of you who are separated from someone. In addition, for those of you who are not with anyone, but you have your eye on a particular person. And we're going to talk about love and romance for those of you who are single and are not yet dating anybody, but you're interested in dating and going into the dating pool. Now, at first here, what you will see is this deck zoomed out. This is the Yokai Tarot deck. It is a deck of Japanese mythological characters. And when we zoom in, you'll get that kind of a view of that kind of mythological perspective, nice and close up. But this deck is based off of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So we are going to get standard interpretations when we do all 12 months here. But this is not the only deck that I'm going to be using today. I am also going to be using a clarification deck that is called the Dark Fantasy Tarot. Just to give us some extra information, extra event kind of energy that happens in each month. So with all of that being said, let's look at the layout here. We've got January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December laid out for you guys. I have my book here next to me because I am going to write down every single month's timestamp video or timestamp so that I can put the time of each month in the description below this video or in the comment section below. If you ever in the future, say it's October of 2026 and you want to revisit this and find the month of October, you can go to it really quickly by clicking on the timestamps. I'm going to leave that there for you. So putting my first timestamp in at 2 minutes and 19 seconds, let us do the interpretation for the month of January. Scorpio, you have, let's zoom in here, the King of Pentacles in the reversal position. Now, it's very interesting, historically speaking, and when I say historically, I mean from a tarot reader's perspective in interpreting historical tarot. The King of Pentacles is actually the card of intelligence in business and logistics. I know a lot of people think that that job is given to the King of Swords, but that's actually a more modern interpretation. In the realms of Arthur Edward Waite, who created the most famous Rider-Waite-Smith deck, he was the brainchild behind that. His understanding of that card had to do with intelligence in a very strategic way. And he actually, just so you know, Arthur Edward Waite didn't actually attribute his cards in a lot of ways to astrology the way that people do nowadays. I know when people think of intelligence, they think, oh, that must be the King of Swords because it's a sword suit and swords are connected to the air signs and the air signs are astrology. So we have to think of our mind. That was actually something that was usually done by people like Levi was his name, Eliphas, and Aleister Crowley, people associated to the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And Arthur Edward Waite actually left the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. People often associate Arthur Edward Waite to that order, but he actually got out of it for a good reason. And he separated himself from what he perceived as clownery. I know that sounds brutal to think of, but he was a very judgmental individual, Arthur Edward Waite. And he judged these cards specifically from a medieval perspective, largely associated to the symbolism you could find in mystic Christianity and, yes, Kabbalism, but Gnosticism. The two of them sometimes don't necessarily go hand in hand. The King of Coins, now that I'm finished giving you that historical perspective for your month, in the reversal position means there is a lack of intelligence or groundedness occurring for some reason. And this is when we grab that other deck and we lay you out an extra clarification card, because when this person becomes ungrounded, the word that Arthur Edward Waite used for the King of Pentacles in the reversal was the word evil. And I don't like that for you. Oh my gosh, it's being suited up with the Empress in the upright position. Wow. Okay. Let me think about this for a second here. Let's start off with those of you who are in a relationship. In this particular month of January 2026, you might be dealing with something that's making you feel not evil, but really pissed off. And at the same token, with the Empress, what you want is love. Because that's what the Empress is about. The Empress ultimately is the trump card that overpowers something like the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles is under the dominion of her consort, the Emperor. And the Empress is a more powerful card than the Emperor, again, according to the dynamics of like Arthur Edward Waite in that traditional tarot. So I am prone to thinking that even though if you're in a relationship, there's something that's pissing you off, I do think that this is still an energy where love can be found. And I actually want to grab one more clarification card for that, because I'm interested in to know why you're so frustrated or why it feels like somebody's acting almost like in an evil way. The Seven of Pentacles is what I just pulled out for an additional clarification card for that one. In the reversal, it's a reap what you sow thing. It means there's something in the past that was you were trying to put effort into and it wasn't coming out in love. It was kind of like falling short in love. And it may be that you consider that somebody's behaving poorly. Maybe someone's behaving in a snooty way, in a malicious way, or with a lack of intelligence, especially in the past. And it's causing an impact now in the month of January, where all you're trying to do is just get some darn Empress-like love. That includes for those of you who are separated from a particular person. You could be trying to bring this loving energy in, but the alternative person that you're dealing with is kind of coming from a selfish perspective. Now, for some of you, the selfish perspective could be somebody who's dealing with perverse thoughts. The King of Pentacles in the reversal, again, according to Arthur Edward Waite, was corruption, perversion, peril, mistrust, suspicion, all of the things that don't require foundational truth and instead come from a place of mistrust and fear and anxiety and a lack of intelligence, right? Because remember, this is the card of a lack of intelligence and it breeds all of these other negative things. It's also the card of vice. And so it's like trying to find love with somebody who has a vice, and that vice they could be gripping onto selfishly, which could be vices like overspending, overeating, over sex, intimacy problems, whatever. It could be a substance use type thing. It's a difficulty in that realm of being able to trust what the outcome is going to be with a particular person, because you know that they're thinking for themselves. On a lower end, it doesn't need to be the worst negative thing in the world, but it is one person, the Empress, who works for everyone else. She's the mother card. She's the one trying to bring everybody in with love, and the other person is not necessarily reciprocal with that. They're too focused on their dynamic. Those of you who are not in a relationship, but you have just started to potentially talk to somebody, or maybe you have your eye on somebody and you're friend zoned. Again, this looks like that person is more for themselves while you're trying to bring in love. So it's a kind of separate dynamic. The Empress wants to be with the Emperor. She definitely doesn't want to be with the King of Pentacles that's in the reversal. That's not to say that the King of Pentacles will always be in the reversal, but in the month of January, his energy is still very separate. And for those of you who are interested in dating, if you do start talking to someone, say you've only talked to them for like a week, you're just feeling out the waters, you've said a quick hello to this person, this is that energy again where somebody could be coming into a more perverse energy. They might be flirtatious very quickly. They could be lustful very quickly. They could be a little bit corrupt, because the King of Pentacles has that corruption and lustful perversion dynamic to them when they're in the reversal. So just watch out for that with your loving self with this Empress energy. Also remember, if these are flipped energies, if you're the one being perverse, then maybe you're dealing with somebody who is very loving. And if that's the case and you have a bit of corruption to you in this month of January, check yourself if you can. Try to see where it's coming from so that you don't impact other people, because the Empress is a good ass energy. That's a good woman, right? Or a good man. That's a good man, Savannah. That's a good woman, Savannah. You know what I mean? So let's move on now to, and this is at the 9-minute and 45-second mark, to the month of February, because what we will end up seeing is if this energy continues. Oh my God, you guys did not. You did not just do that. You are continuing the energy because look at this. It might be your energy that's a little bit barbaric or a little bit perverse and like overly lustful. Because the Queen of Pentacles, what do you think her energy is? We just described her consort, the King of Pentacles, in the reversal. And the month of February for you is that exact dynamic. She, more specifically, though, in the reversal, over 100 years ago, when Arthur Edward Waite discussed her card in his Pictorial Key to the Tarot, published in 1910, that's his instruction booklet on these cards, he talked about her from a position of mistrust, from a position of suspicion. But she's also the woman who should not be trusted. She is so... we'll break it up again for people who are in a relationship. This might be why you think somebody's selfish, because they might have been dealing with a person who's a little bit on the perverse side and shouldn't be trusted. You see that little bunny? Have you ever heard the expression fucking like rabbits? Pardon my French, you know? But that's the key, that it's somebody whose intimacy or sexuality could be running rampant and they have to hold on to it and get a grip on it. So again, if this is yours and you've been like really hormonal lately, or like you're shifting in that dynamic where you're feeling like lustful or have more of a propensity towards experiencing your sexuality, then this is why this card could be here. But just as that reminder, it's a very self-serving spot to be in when you've got both of them back to back like this. And yes, self-serving is useful and things can actually grow from lust. I'm not saying that this is the worst thing. I'm saying, though, that if it's unchecked and it's you, it can cause problems. But if it is not you and it is someone that you're dealing with, then again, it's a reason to kind of have a mistrustful energy. Because that's what she's about. She's about a lack of groundedness, an inability to use intelligence clearly because there's so much suspicion and fear. Let's grab a clarification card before we take that into the realms of people who are separated from their partner, or people who are, you know, just thinking about dating somebody or have their eye on someone. See, we've got the King of Wands here. This is fascinating too. I feel like there may be a little bit of the energy where at first I'm like, okay, if you guys are dealing with a negative Nancy, you know, not a negative Nancy, but somebody who's like you're suspicious of, maybe they do have a reason you can't trust them. But there is a bit of an energy here because we've got a lot of mirroring going on. We've got the King, we've got the Queen, we had the Empress, the female. Now we have another male energy of a court card with the King, that you might be mirroring somebody's energy as well. But here's the interesting part, is the King of Wands, again, in modern tarot, gets a bad rep. People are like, this is the one who's prideful, this is the one who has ego. Not according to Arthur Edward Waite. This was the man who chose everything with integrity and honesty. You can't have integrity and an overly egotistical person in the same body. Those two are incompatible with one another. And even in the reversal position, the King of Wands is the man who is always searching and acting with truth. Not searching, sorry. He's acting with truth, but he's severe when he does it. He's austere, yet severe is the expression that's given to that card. So you've got a card of the Queen of Cups who's mistrustful, and you've got a card of the King of Cups who's being honest, and suddenly the dynamic shifts into, if your person is being truthful, now maybe you are the one who's being too suspicious. Some of you guys are going to experience it a different way. Like if you know your person has been mistrustful in the reversal, then yes, they're the one with the unclear, unintelligent based foundational energy. But if you don't actually have any proof of the person that you're with has been with somebody else, and you don't have proof that they're doing that right now, then it might be your energy that's showing up like this that's overly suspicious. And if you already know you're an overly suspicious person, then again, take a moment to consider that maybe the suspicion lays on your side because of past hurts, because that King of Wands is an honest individual. Whoever's playing the part of that King of Wands, they're telling the truth, and they're not going around trying to stick their Johnson into everything that walks in terms of love and romance. This is a very straightforward reading, guys. For those of you who are not in a relationship, but you have your eye on somebody, you might be suspicious of them, but they're just doing their thing. They're being very honest. Okay? And if it's you, Maybe you have your eye on somebody, but you're overly lustful, or, you know, you're stepping into that very sexuality energy. You're okay with the taboo. You're okay with the kinks or things like that might be ruffling up for you. The other person, on the other hand, might have that ability within them, but only from a position of integrity. They're not interested in overdoing things. They're not interested in getting in relationships so that it's only intimacy and, like, you know, kicking boots all the time. Because again, the King of Wands is a person whose integrity is very important to them. The truth is very important to them. They are very passionate though. But they recognize when something's an issue very quickly. So check your energy if it is you. And if it isn't, if you're good to go, then that the person that you're dealing with, again, flip the thing. They might have a little bit of a lustful energy. One of you's got the lustful energy. You guys are talking to somebody with this many kings and this many queens. Y'all are talking to people. For those of you who are newly dating, the same goes for you. You guys are talking to someone. It just depends on who's holding that dynamic. Which one of you is a little more perverse? If integrity matters and it's not you, then the other one, watch out for them. That's my point with this, okay? All right, let's go on to the month of March here. We're in the 15-minute and 59-second mark as I write that down in my book. I love this energy now. Hell yes. I am extra today, guys. I'm sorry I'm ovulating during your reading, which means I'm a spicy individual today. So the Eight of Cups is traditionally, we'll say it like this. In a modern sense, it is looked at as a card of walking away from someone. For some of you, this may be a dynamic where you have in the past walked away from someone, but in the reversal, in a modern sense, it is walking back. So if you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out with me and my partner, they're coming back, and this is happening in the month of March, or things get more settled in the month of March. And I mean, you know what? If someone has been a little bit more perverse and you guys have been okay with that for the past 2 months, there's always that. I said that in the first reading of January. Sometimes if it is just a couple months of perversion and lust and taboo and kinkiness, things can grow from that. It doesn't have to be all negative. It's just something to watch out for if it's overdone. And in the month of March, there seems to be some reason that's pulled somebody back. Maybe there is an increase in some positive intimacy that happens by the time we get to the month of March now. And for those of you who are separated from someone, again, actually separated, actually broken up, March is that go time for you guys to come back into a state of abundance. That's the modern understanding. Looking at the mystic Christian Arthur Edward Waite historical way of looking at tarot over 100 years ago, they weren't just coming back for the sake of arguing again or just being a person who stands next to you. They're coming back to have a great feast of abundance. That's what those cards are actually for here. Okay, I just had to go feed my kids for a second there. I'm back. So what do you remember the concepts in history of what was the reason for a great feast and great abundance? Why would somebody come to a great feast or abundance? They come there because there's something to celebrate. They're coming in unity with a bunch of people, right? And so that's why I'm like, oh, I'm really thrilled to see that this energy is here for you in that particular month of March. Somebody coming together. Now look at this though. Did we not just get the Queen of Pentacles and the King of Pentacles, and then we got the King of Wands, and now we have the Queen of Wands? I'm going to lay it out there also. For some of you Scorpios, again, with this many queens and kings, especially for those of you in the dating aspect, trying to date people, it looks like there are multiple people that you might be talking to. You're like, I'm trying to find my person. I'm trying to, be passionate with someone. But I am going to say, though, that when the Queen of Wands is in the reversal position, they are the queen of jealousy and envy. So that's something to be careful about. And if we divide that up into people who are in a relationship, then again, you might find that although this person is coming into your life to celebrate or to unite, there's still this aspect of mistrust that's there. And for some reason, there could be jealousy. But when she's in the reversal, She is a person who is obliged for service. It's interesting because it's actually the Queen of Cups in the upright who is also obliged for service, and it's the Queen of Wands in the reversal who, although she suspects things and can be mistrustful, she still comes together with people to unite with them, even though she has suspicions of whether things will work out. And it doesn't need to be suspicious of a person cheating or suspicious of infidelity, but you could have suspicions of your partner and like wonder if they're really going to work hard at the relationship the way that you need them to. Whatever it is, there's suspicions there, but there's a willingness to still work together. For those of you who are separated, it's the same dynamic. Again, people coming together at this point in time. But that suspicion exists, but the willingness to cooperate is there. For those of you who are not in a relationship, and you've just had your eye on someone, but it's not like you've broken up and had a hard time with this person, then I don't think the suspicions are going to be there in that dynamic of like infidelity, which we've discussed with some of the other storylines, you could say. But instead, this is somebody coming into your life and you're willing to work with them. It's a very celebratory energy, but you do wonder if it's going to work out. Are they here to stay? Or are they just here for the feast? Because that is one of the qualities of a great feast. It does come sometimes with gluttony and somebody who's there just for a moment. And I think this is not an indication of them being in your life just for a moment, but that you have a suspicion of whether they'll stay or not. And then for those of you who are just dating, like you're just starting to talk to somebody and you're thinking of entering into the dating pool, as we've discussed previously, you will likely have already met somebody by this time. And in this month of March, you have the ability to actually come together for the feast, which can show up as an actual dinner. Going out with somebody, coming together in a celebratory manner. Although there is some suspicions and things that you have to work on, you actually do have an energy of uniting with somebody at this point by the time you get to the month of March. Now, let me write down that we are at the 21 minute and 51 second mark here. And we're going to check out the month of April and see how it progresses. Oh, damn, it progresses really nice, guys. What? Look at this, who it is that you decide to start talking to at that point. The Two of Cups is here in the upright position. And it doesn't actually even matter if it's in the upright, because that particular card in the upright and in the reversal has the same meaning. According to Arthur Edward Waite, it is the card of, oh no, that's the Ten of Cups. It's even better. Oh my God. For a second there, it's the characters who are on the Two of Cups. It is not the Two of Cups. That is way better. It is the Ten of Cups. It is completion. It is unity. It is you meet up with this person or you have a good time in the previous month of March and you guys are united. Holy moly. Let's cut it up, right? In the relationship aspect of somebody who is in a relationship. By the time you get into that next season, when you're in the month of April, you guys are united. Rainbows and sunshines are coming out of everybody's behind here. For those of you who were separated and you got back together with someone in March, you're still going in a good energy by the time you get to the month of April. For those of you who had your eye on someone and they, came by for dinner and you wondered if they were going to be here, they're still here by the month of April. And for those of you who have just started to talk to somebody in the realms of dating, this is you guys actually saying, hey, would you like to make this exclusive? This is like getting into the completion stage of saying that you're in a relationship. Let's pull out this. Oh, yes. Well, I'm so happy for you guys. I am happy for you guys because remember how I said, sometimes gluttony, sometimes lust and passionate situations can actually lead to good things. Well, that's what the Nine of Cups is about. This is a gentleman who's got his cake and gets to eat it too, if you understand the expression. But naturally, in a historical sense, it is the card of wish fulfillment. How you get the Ten of Cups next to the Nine of Cups. There's no negativity there. There is no other way but saying that the month of April, like at the end of this reading, when I call out what your best month is, I know already it's going to be April because you've got the greatest months there, or the greatest cards, the greatest energy. This is unity. This is wish fulfillment. And by the way, the Nine of Cups insinuates it's more than one wish. It is more than one wish. It can be the wish of cuddling and closeness and good money Anything that makes you happy with the realms of cups. I know I just said money and people think money has to do with pentacles, but it's anything that lights your heart up, even good news that comes. It's also in family and relationships. For those of you, let's add this in here. For those of you who have been trying to conceive, that's the time frame, because that's got depictions and energy connected to family on it. That's why there are little children on the front of that card. If you've been interested in expanding your family, April is the energy for this. Fantastic, guys. All right, 25 minutes and 9 seconds in. Let's go on to the month of May for Scorpios here. Things do get a little bit more difficult here. What comes up in life must go down, as the saying goes. And then what goes down has another cycle. It goes back up. And then what goes up and what goes down, sometimes it just flatlines a little bit and you have some more boring months. But in this case, with the Queen of Swords in the reversal, she is somebody who deals with grief for some reason, and it can be the grief of loss. So I'm going to flip out a card here, and I'm going to see what the loss is, or what the grief is. Why does the Queen of Swords have this dynamic showing up all of a sudden for your month of May? You know what? I know she is the griever of loss, but I'm going to say this, she's also the card of bigotry, the card of deception in the reversal, because she is the Queen of Swords, right? The swords is typically connected in a modern sense to intellect, but in a historical sense in the reversal, she was deception, which incorporates intellect and how someone handles their intellect. And not prudence, but prudery and malice. And this feels like, it kind of feels like argumentative energy. So there could be an energy all of a sudden where it's not just an argument for the sake of arguing. It almost feels like it could be somebody's belief system. Like you're with a person, you experience them, you're getting to know them, you're getting to learn about different avenues of them. And then a part of them shows that rubs you the wrong way. That's why I'm saying it's interesting that this card is connected to prudery and bigotry and somebody whose mouth is a little full of themselves. But it's also connected to the Ace of Wands in the reversal as well for the clarification card here, which in the reversal position is actually a card of rosy colored glasses and decadence, extravagance, and clouded joy. So I think what happens is things go really good in the month of April. It's just like it's this roll. You're on a roll. Everything's really good with this person. And then a more extravagant side of them, or a more extra side of them, or a more bigotry-based side of them, something within their belief system rubs you the wrong way. And it was a little clouded. But because it's in the reversal, the Ace of Wands, it insinuates that you kind of let it slide. Not that you're okay with it, but that you don't do anything about it. You don't speak up about something that bugs you with this person. And so you maintain keeping a clouded joy onto it. See, it's interesting because it does insinuate that there's still joy in that month of May. It's just one that's your perception of the relationship gets a little clouded for some reason. And we're kind of stepping back into, with the dynamics of bigotry or the dynamics of perversion. I think those two could be looked at for this month as something you might find that you're bringing up again. Those first 2 months of January and February had this dynamic of somebody who's really dealing with their body in a perverse way or in an overly lustful way. And while, yes, I said there can be good things that come from lustful, passionate, taboo experiences of the body, or the ways that people text each other or sext each other and things like that, there can be forward progress with those things if they are not unchecked. And I think you guys might dip into that a little bit in the month of May, where you might be experiencing a dynamic of intimacy with somebody that you're kind of allowing to go unchecked because you're clouded in the joy of it. Like someone says that they like a certain avenue of intimacy. Maybe Maybe someone's into foot stuff. I'm kidding, but I'm not. I'm using a very exaggerated example of somehow, like in the realms of intimacy, somebody says something and it is, you just kind of let it pass. You're like, oh, maybe that's just their thing, but it also maybe is not your thing and you should be vocal about it. It feels like that. Where that was just, again, a funny example. There is certainly more stringent examples, though, of something rubbing someone the wrong way. Like perhaps they have a job and the way they treat somebody at work rubs you the wrong way and you don't say anything about it. Or they're hanging out with somebody and you're keeping it quiet, that it's bothering you, but that you can see that it's not something that's appropriate. You see what I'm saying? There's some kind of a dynamic that almost feels like a boundary should be there and it's not. So it's just something to be aware of going forward, I suppose, in the month of May. We're actually halfway through right now. At the 30-minute and 29-second mark, let's look at the month of June. The Justice in the reversal. Perhaps it is that unchecked energy that's about to come into play in a more realistic sense instead of a clouded sense once you get into the month of June here. Because traditionally, the Justice card is the card of you reap what you sow. I knew it. I do like this, though. It's okay. See, there is an injustice that's going to happen. Or an imbalance. And it is going to show its head in the month of June, where somebody may have not kept in check or properly understood what the version of their intimacy is like in the dynamic of a relationship or someone that you're talking to. But in a way where whatever that situation is, it actually results in you or your person, whoever you're talking to, leveling yourself up to actually balance your carnal body. And I say that because this entire reading, I kept getting over and over again this feeling of the carnal body, lustful or intimacy issues evolving. These are all natural things that people go through when they're in a relationship. We don't just go into a relationship to hug and not say anything and not speak to anyone. We show a person the sides of ourselves that can be harder to deal with, or more intimate, or more vulnerable, or more of our body. We go through these kind of things connected to the carnal body. And the Strength card is the card of overcoming the carnal body. Historically speaking, I'll give you another little mini lesson here. That card, which has the lion on it, when Arthur Edward Waite spoke of his understanding of tarot, he appreciated and held reverence for the fact that there was a possibility that these cards and the symbols that were created were connected to an ancient tradition in Christian mysticism that involved this great lion that a lot of people hadn't heard of. And in that Christian mysticism story, he associated the stories from the Albigensians, which were people in the 1200s who were crusaded against. The Catholic Church slaughtered them, and those people believed that the Catholic Church had taken the true Christianity. They got their understanding of Christianity from earlier Gnostic Christians from like 2,000 years ago in Gnostic Christianity. Other groups of people like the Bogomils, as an example, the Valentinians, the Sethians, these original forms of Christianity that spent so much time in history saying that they were the true Christianity. And Arthur Edward Waite kind of caught on to these stories and again kind of brought them into the symbolisms of his card. They believed that the lion, there was a character that was known as the lion-headed serpent. It stems back from also Zoroastrianism instead of just Christian mysticism or Christian Gnosticism. And this character of the great carnal lion, sometimes known as the demiurge, and I think the other name was Ahura Mazda in Zoroastrianism, that great lion was connected to the characteristics of the carnal body in terms of lust. In his mythology, he was a creature that was kind of He was always going after the women of the earth in a way that he could plant his seed, if you understand. And he was not a very consenting creature in those mythological perspectives. And because he never cared for the consent over the bodies of women and men, he became the figure associated to people whose bodies and sexuality was unchecked. And that's why he shows up here with the Empress, this female dynamic, subduing the crazy chaos of the body within. Teaching how the body shouldn't be so rampant. Teaching how hormones should go in check. Teaching how addictions, even whether it's intimate addictions or food addictions or being on autopilot because people drink too much, anything that has to do with the body, the girl in this image here on this card, the Empress, she subdues that and takes care of it. Which is why I like that it's in the upright position, because it insinuates that somebody's body in terms of relationships with another person is getting checked. But with the Justice card in the reversal, it's on the back of some complication. So there can be a complication that happens in the month of June, but it's a necessary evil. Again, this was also the truth. If we look at an ancient Gnostic book called the Gospel of Thomas, this was the ancient truth of that lion, that it was necessary. There was a statement in the Gospel of Thomas that said, if the lion eats the man, then, yay, because the lion becomes man. And if the man eats the lion, then yay, the lion also becomes man. It didn't matter what the great lion of this recklessness did, as long as he learned to become human, then he was given a purpose in these ancient mythologies. The lion, as chaotic and bodily as he was actually meant to win out in the end and become better. And this is the case of necessary evil in a mythological standpoint. But if you look at the macrocosm, the story of this ancient creature who was once chaotic and lustful and tampering with things in the earth, and we bring that into your microcosm of a life, then it shows up as somebody whose body is unchecked and the universe comes in to correct it on the back of something that might be a little bit more difficult, like that lion. You stand in front of a lion, the lion's going to try and eat you. Right? I'm using metaphors here to help you to understand that if you let your body get unchecked, your body will consume you. It will consume your mind, and it will cause problems on autopilot that lead to overthinking, over anxiety, over suspicion, over lustful, over gluttony. And in the month of June, if it's you or your person who had that propensity, it's getting checked in the month of June. Now, the month of July is next at the 37-minute and 19-second mark. You guys have one of the most philosophical readings that I've done thus far. Also one of the more bodily prone out of the horoscope signs. I've done, Aries, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra. Now I'm doing Scorpio. And this seems to be an overarching theme in yours, but I do like that it's transitioning to get better. In the month of July, though, we do have the Temperance in the reversal. And the Temperance is the card of being grounded, which means you have to be realistic about a relationship that you're in and remove the cloudedness of that relationship. Remove the illusion that you're painting for yourself about how a relationship should go. Sometimes people cloud themselves by putting their partner on a pedestal, or sometimes people create a picture of what this person is in a relationship or how the relationship might go. Maybe you have all these plans for the future. That the Temperance card in the reversal kind of warns you to make sure you stay grounded and stay realistic, that the picture you might be painting for yourself might be too over the edge or over the top, and to stay balanced and checked. And again, that same theme comes up. In fact, look closely. What do you see? It is a woman who has to balance a pot in her hand so that she doesn't splash the water unchecked all over her lap. See how I'm saying the symbolism keeps coming up over and over again. And so let's grab a clarification card here for a moment. Let's see what that Temperance card is being placed with. The Queen of Wands. Suspicions. Remember earlier we got the Woman of Jealousy or suspicions. It's to make sure that your thoughts are grounded and not being too suspicious again. Now, this could be your person. Remember, the dynamics could be maybe your person was the one whose body needed to be checked. You know what I mean? Maybe they were too focused on intimacy, or they had a certain boundary that they had to deal with. If it's not intimacy, maybe it's in their lifestyle. Whatever it is, it looks like it could flare up a little bit when you get into that month of July, because the temperance in the reversal insinuates the balance has come back off a little bit. The perspective and rosy colored glasses might try to cover things up that should be looked at. That's a really straightforward energy, by the way, for that particular month. So I'm going to go into the 39-minute and 52 seconds mark here for the month of August, and we're going to look at why on earth the King of Swords has just shown up. Actually, you know what? Guess what happens with the King of Swords in the reversal? I mean, we've already done the King of Wands. We've already done the King of Pentacles. Why not add the King of Swords to the list? And we've got him. You see, the King of Swords, again, just like the King of Pentacles, in the reversal means perversion, but this time it's perversion of barbarity instead of just perversion of your intellect. It's heavier on the perversion that has to do with the body. That's why he's got that big old belly, and it's symbolizing the gluttonous attitudes that people can have with their body or with their food or with anything. Can be gluttony, overspending, over money. Those are all gluttonous attributes. But the King of Swords, when he's in the reversal, he's a military leader. That's what this king does. So when I say militant, he usually uses his strategic intellect in the upright position, but militantly, and he can be bitter in that sense when he's in the reversal. So it's somebody who's with their sharpness of their mouth or their sharpness of their attitude or their bluntness can become barbaric with their mouth. So things get imbalanced enough when we're in the month of July that it's almost like somebody's attitude starts to come up in that next month of August. Let me pull that clarification card here, because we had some good months of love and we've got some lesson learnings happening. And again, it is attitude with their mouth, but also as that reminder, the King of Swords specifically is barbarity and perversion. So it can be somebody's bodily concepts coming back up into play. And it's something to be noted, I think, just so that it can paint the picture for you about the kings. It's not that every king is perversion. The King of Wands, like I said, you got him already. And the King of Wands in the reversal is somebody who's very truthful. He is honest, but he does have severity to him in his honesty. I'm just saying that for some reason you've got more kings that show up with perversion than you do the kings of truthfulness, which is why I'm just cautioning about whatever's happening with someone's dynamic. There are avenues of truth, it's just not as much. There's avenues of barbarity happening. So the clarification card here. Oh, there's the Knight of Wands. If there was any card that had to do with passion of the body and getting what they want, it's this one. So if you put the King of Swords, who is the military leader, and he instructs his knight to go get what he wants, then we know that somebody in that relationship is going to become very stubborn. They are going to push the boundaries. This is a lesson in boundaries. A lot of this year for you guys is going to be a lesson in boundaries. Pushing their boundaries to some degree here by trying to get what it is they want, by sending their Knight of Wands to go and get what it is that they want. What also is really interesting is that the King of Swords, historically speaking, is like I said, the military leader. He is the militant leader. It insinuates that there's a reason for battle. And the Knight of Wands is the one who goes into battle. They charge into battle. Actually, in the reversal, their battle gets lost. In the upright position, they usually win their battle. So this King of Swords has a lot of energy on his side, whoever this energy is, to get what they want, but with a bit of an attitude. And if that's you, then hey, let me say that for that month of August, you're going to get what you want. But if it's the other person who's about to push a boundary, they're not necessarily going to let up. The month, let me get my pen here. We are 43 minutes and 58 seconds in for the month of September. Now we have a Six of Wands card here. And we're coming up close to the end of the year. We're going to see if these lessons shift over or what's going on in the realms of love and romance. Now, the Six of Wands, again, it was in the reversal. I have just put it in the upright position for a moment so that I can show you what the card looks like so you can understand the dynamic of it. The Six of Wands is a gentleman who is trying to get victory. He's celebrating on a horse. He is actually the same character as the Knight of Wands that we just saw, who's trying to go after what they want. And you've got all of these other sticks behind him. The insinuation is that there are people behind this king celebrating him, holding their sticks up, saying, hurrah, hurrah, you've got what you want, you've got what you want. But you see how the head is cut off there. On the top of the horse, it's a headless horse. Not the headless horseman, but the headless horse. That horse is supposed to be able to see where it's going. And in the reversal, it cannot. And it trips up. It trips up. It has got what he wants. This person did get what you want, or you did get what you want. But in the month of September, there's the energy of what was once something that you want that was clouded. You let your vision get clouded. Your boundaries get blurred. The red lines get blurred. Suddenly, the trip up actually happens in the month of September. Because that's when the horse can't see so much that it falls on its face, and the gentleman who's riding that horse falls off the horse. It becomes, in the reversal, the card of loss instead of victory. So there is a loss that's happening. And the Fool card is here in the reversal. And if you know anything about the card of the Fool, it is the one who leads with their heart, not their body, not their mind. It is the one who led with their heart. And in the reversal, that means somebody was not leading with their heart. They were leading with too much of the material world, too much of their body, and that all of these months of warning finally catch up in the month of September. So if you have this reading done, in the future you decide to come back to a reading, and it's the month of September, and you see this reading again, feel free to leave me a comment, because I feel like you're going to be saying to me in September of 2026, yep, hey Lenny, I saw this reading months ago. It really was September. That was the pinnacle moment where a loss occurred, where people tripped up and the habit was too much. The straw that broke the camel's back was too much. The first part of your year is a passionate experience. The first part of your year is coming together with someone. The next part of your year is realizing that when you wanted love so much, you may have done it too quickly, and you're going to potentially learn the lessons of Fool's Rush In, because the Fool is in the reversal. The Fool card usually does not mean that somebody is being foolish, but it can in certain rare circumstances, such as when the entire reading looks like somebody has been clouded because they've been just trying to have so much passion. They forgot to foundationally lay a good foundation. And that's when all of a sudden I see the next card with so much importance here as we enter into the 47-minute mark and 28 seconds for the month of October. It makes perfect sense why this is here. Because it's the Ten of Swords. It is the card of loss. But it's a loss that is so great that it means something has ended. It's in the month of October, where if there was any energy of a dynamic for a relationship to go sour, it is that month. It's actually the month before, because I said the loss happens in September, but the reality of it hits you in the month of October. And in the reversal card, that card specifically feels like somebody betrayed either themselves or betrayed another person. But furthermore, the Ten of Swords in the reversal means that you are very resistant. Now you're on your own in this one. I mean, in the month of October, this doesn't look like people are communicating, which means this is your energy, which means you are resistant to the ending. You want to continue a relationship dynamic or want to continue an experience with someone, but life catches up with you in the month before in September, and the loss is here, and it's difficult to say. But here, look at this. The Magician card. I love that this energy can follow with it, because yes, you are resistant. Yes, there is an ending. All of that is true. Just because we pull out this extra card doesn't change that. But a 10 is a number of completion. Like 9s and 10s, numerology wise, means something has just completed. And what do you think the Magician card is? Look closely, my dear. Do I have it? Is it listed on here? Right here. See that? It's number 1. In the card of tarot, 0 is the Fool card, which you already got, and you were resistant to going with your heart on that one. And on the journey of tarot, the Fool, who's supposed to be listening to his heart, the first person he bumps into on the path of life is the Magician. That's why it's card number 1. So you've got a card that says an ending has just happened and a new path, a new number 1 is about to unfold. But the Magician card, it asks one very important question. It says, what do you want in your path? What is it that you want going forward? Not what can you try and get from the past? What can you try and bring up again? But it is, what do you want now going forward in the month of October? Look at what the Magician has the capability of. In traditional Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, on the table in front of the Magician, he has a sword that he can use. He has a pentacle that he can use. He has cups that he can use. We see these all of them are here, right? Same energy, because this deck, the Dark Fantasy Tarot, is also based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Or he can use the wand. But in traditional tarot, he does use the wand. He actually chooses, out of all of the instruments that he could have, he chooses the wand because the wands are the most important energy in tarot. More important than pentacles, more important than the cups cards, more important than swords. There's a reason why the very first card, he's holding a wand, and the very first suit that Arthur Edward Waite ever wants to discuss and writes down in his instruction booklet is the wands. It's because you cannot have the cup without the wand. You cannot have the sword without the wand. You cannot have the pentacle without the wand. Because if you have cups of emotion and no idea what you want to do with the emotion, your willpower is not in line with what you want with your emotions, then your emotions spill everywhere. If you've got a bunch of pentacles and money, if you don't know what you want to do with that money, then it's useless. It spills everywhere. And if you have a sword that you want to battle with, but you don't have the awareness of what you want to do with that sword, then the sword is useful or useless. And so what first you have to deal with is knowing what you want. And that is the energy of what you're going to be considering in that month of October. It is the card of manifestation. And it's in the upright. So it actually insinuates that you are going to choose an appropriate thing to manifest. So the middle of your year has these difficulties and lessons learned. But the end of your year is putting you on a path for you to gain something better than you even had before. So yes, you had passionate experience, and if you play your cards right, then leading into 2027, you're going to end up with even better because the lesson will have been learned with the Magician and the upright. It seems to happen relatively quickly because in the month, now we're doing November. The month of November is the 5 of Wands, which does mean that in that next month, you do find a way to gain a little bit of a victory. The thing, though, is that for many of you, it looks like you might jump into speaking with people that make you suspicious again. I mean, look at the eyes of the character here. Do those look like welcoming eyes? Nope, they're suspicious eyes. Even look at that one. Look at how his hand is up by his chin and his eyes are squinted in suspicion. That's because that's what the 5 of Wands is a card about, historically speaking. It is when you have many people now watching you and they're watching you suspiciously, or you're watching them suspiciously. So you've ended a dynamic 2 months before in a relationship, and by the time you get into November, suddenly you're allowing yourself to try again, and you're allowing yourself to go forward into a relationship because you are the prize. You are valuable. You're a whole damn human, even with the flaws that you have, even on days when you're suspicious, even on days when you might be cranky. You're still valuable as a human. So I say that because the 5 of Wands, historically speaking, as you're journeying into this world to try again, if we look at the 5 of Wands in its historical concept, it is this dynamic of somebody who if you look at the 2 of Wands, that was the card of Alexander the Great, deciding to go on a path like the Magician. He was deciding to go forward and conquer. He gets to the 3 of Wands and he sees boats that have a bunch of gold on it. He gets to the 4 of Wands and he builds everything up and harvests this beautiful gold. And then he gets to the 5 of Wands. Historically speaking, this is how Arthur Edward Waite looked at it. That person, or you, whoever it is, gets to the 5 of Wands and suddenly everybody wants his gold. Suddenly they become like surrounded by people who've got their eye on you. or suspicion. And so again, this energy could be that for those of you who have separated from someone at that time in and around October-ish, September, October, by the time you get November, you've got somebody watching you, watching how you're moving forward. For those of you who have, I can't even bring myself to say, still in a relationship, because according to these cards, it does not look like you're going to be in a relationship. If you are, you're separated from somebody, and you have made the announcement, we're going on a break kind of thing. Like, we are not in each other's vicinity. It's very kind of negative like that. Somebody has been, it's like the husband sleeps in the bedroom and you sleep in the living room. It's very much that kind of dynamic where you're separating. But it's, again, someone's got their eye on you while you do this potential of moving forward or shifting your gears. And for those of you who are starting to date, again, it looks like you might have a lot of people who have their eye on you. You could be jumping into speaking to quite a few people to kind of feel a little bit better about the loss that you take in September and October. But it could also be you that's very suspicious. Because now you don't want to get, and here's the answer to that, you don't want to get heartbroken. 3 of Swords. So it is still a frustrating dynamic with the infamous 3 of Swords card. People who don't even read tarot know that this card is a tarot card. Everybody's seen the picture of the heart that has swords stuck into it. It means heartbreak. It means betrayal. And with the 5 of Wands, it means suspicion and jealousy riling up because of that previous heartbreak and betrayal. So then that's getting us to the very end of this video. We have the last month here at the 55-minute and 52-second mark. We're looking at December. We are seeing how Scorpio is dealing with this intensity. And what we have is the Knight of Swords here for the final month. Now, much like the Knight of Wands that we saw earlier on in this reading, you have another knight. Just like all the kings you've had. You get a lot of knights in this reading. A lot of battle cards. A lot of court cards, they're called. And the Knight of Swords is a card of someone going into battle again. But in the case of the Knight of Swords, usually it's a picture of someone wearing a lot of armor. You know, the Knight in Shining Armor card? I'm not talking Knight in Shining Armor like a knight that's coming to sweep you off your feet. That's actually the Knight of Cups. That's the messenger card. But the Knight of Swords wears armor because they're protecting themselves, because now they're in a defensive position. They are aware that there was a battle between somebody, so they put their walls up. Let me just see what's going on here. We've got it again. I shuffled it right back out. The Queen of Wands energy is here. This does insinuate that earlier on in the year, the Queen of Wands card that we already saw, that card of suspicion, that card of someone who is willing to be of service to someone but is very skeptical at the same time. Now you're in a part of the reading where there doesn't look like compatible partnership showing up, which means the energy of the Queen of Wands was likely yours at the very beginning of this energy, the suspicion, the mistrust. You've got this king who might push boundaries that you don't like. It could be intimacy boundaries, but it could be their attitude and their boundaries with their attitude. Because like I said, bigotry was kind of a vibe here. And corruption was kind of a vibe. And while they, whoever they are, hold that energy of the king in the reversal, the queen in the reversal kept showing up as somebody who's very suspicious, has a proneness to envy or jealousy or mistrust. Doesn't have to be all 3 at the same time. Each one of you Scorpios will be different. Some of you, envy absolutely grabs onto you. Others of you, suspicion absolutely grabs onto you. And for some of you out there, it might be all 3 that you are prone to, because you may be prone to over anxiety in your lifestyle. And in this case, it's as if to say, who is it that has their defenses up? The Queen of Wands, the one who's suspicious, the one who dealt with the heartbreak previously. So it is a lesson learning, eye-opening reading for the year 2026 for Scorpio in the realms of boundaries, what you will tolerate and how you act in relationships, how clouded you might allow yourself to be in relationships. And I think most importantly, what you're willing to tolerate. Because again, this dynamic of a king and a queen is here, but these are very tough energies, you know? These are people who will push buttons. This is also the kind of relationship, I'm going to say, that sounds karmic, and not karmic in a just a your forever person soulmate kind of vibe, but karmic as in lesson kind of vibe. Well, we got the Queen and King of Pentacles. We got the Queen and King of Wands. So we've got repetitive energies of people who are supposed to be with each other, but they keep approaching their relationship in the reversal position. So it doesn't matter if somebody is supposed to be with you. If people don't treat each other properly, then those people who were supposed to be together are going to fry their relationship for some reason and become a lesson and lead to some kind of repetition. So this is the dynamic of it. The most important thing that you can do in any of these months is to lead your life from a position of integrity. And since this entire reading is about the carnal body, I think to maintain integrity, you can do this one rule going forward. If this is you, if this is your person, they'll have to learn this lesson on their own. But if it is you that happens to have a little bit of this dynamic of leading with your body too much or cloudy judgment in terms of boundaries and things, if you do any action in life, ask yourself two things. Firstly, is the action that I'm about to do coming from a place of fear? And if it is, if you're afraid to let go of something, if you're afraid someone's going to leave, if you're afraid to say the wrong thing, then analyze what else kind of an action you can do. If the one action is connected to fear, there's no point in doing it. It's not from a place of integrity then. It's from a place of fear and anxiety. And the second thing that you can do, if you have to do certain actions in a relationship that feel a little uncomfortable, like I said, that first rule, ask yourself if it's coming from fear or not. But the second rule is to ask yourself if the action that you're dealing with is coming from one of the 7 deadly sins. Those are they call them deadly for a reason. It's because they don't turn out good in the end. You could be rampant with your gluttony for as long as you want, and eventually the universe will say, that's enough time for you with that gluttony. Your body's going to give out on you. Gluttony can be over shopping, overeating, not sleeping enough, too much sex. All of that kind of stuff is gluttony. Then you can say the same thing for, am I too lustful? Is it coming from a place of wrath and anger? Is it coming from a place of greed, covetousness, or envy? I know those 7 deadly sins sound very Christian. It was actually a monk who created them, a little bit of a Franciscan monk vibe. But they're still useful because even if you don't have any religions, inevitably humans come to the realization that those particular things that you do will always backfire. So might as well ask yourself, hey, am I demanding too much sex lately? Is that coming from a place of lust? Is that one of the 7 deadly sins? Then you can say, I think this action I'm about to do might be coming from too much sex, or might be coming from too much avarice. That's the love of money and spending. Or yeah, it is coming from a place of gluttony. As much as we talked about boundaries and lust and kinky and passion, just remember a lot of this reading has to do with the carnal body, and the carnal body will express itself in different ways. This relationship might have problems with eating. This relationship might have problems with substance use. It could have problems with lustful. Whichever of your versions show up in the relationships, or overspending, or love of money, whatever it is, or dishonesty. Remember the word adultery? Adultery also means dishonesty because you have to be dishonest in order to be adulterous. So whichever one it is that a person's body is dealing with, it looks like it's going to blow up and backfire a little bit in this year, and it should be tackled. And one way to tackle it is to ask yourself, in the actions that I'm just about to do, when I'm about to call this person, when I'm about to talk to this person, when I'm sending this message, is it coming from a place of fear? And is it coming from an area that could be connected to one of the 7 deadly sins? If you can master those 2 simple steps, by the time you get to the end of the year, you might not be in a situation that blows up. It might not be so clouded. Because if you do that, what you're doing then is you're consciously living. You are consciously deciding, what boundaries do I tolerate? What am I willing to put up with? Am I, in this relationship with clear vision instead of clouded vision? Because to live in clouded vision means you or your person is kind of on autopilot. They're not consciously making decisions. Their body is leading them. Their stress levels, their cortisol levels, their serotonin and dopamine, all of that is leading instead of actual consciousness. And I mean actually consciously using consciousness. I'm going to leave you guys off with that. That was a heavy reading. Scorpios, you do get a heavy vibe because, look at you right in the middle of the entire Milky Way. You guys are so valuable and so important that, in history, in Greek history, the sign of Libra didn't even exist because they were the claws of Scorpio. That's how important you guys are. Scorpios are so valuable and so important that you sit at the dead center of the Milky Way. You are the exact transition of the time of the living transitioning to the time of the dead of winter. That's why you guys have heavy energy. That's why Pluto's connected to you, right? So I'm not surprised you guys have such a heavy lesson, but you guys have heavy blessings when they do come in. So I'm hopeful for your guys' 2027. And if anything, enjoy the beginning of the year when you do have a lot of passion. It'll be a lot of fun when you get into a relationship. It's just the later part of the year that might be a little bit more of a life learning lesson avenue. I wish you guys all the best. Thank you very much. And I am going to be doing the sign of Capricorn next, who probably will also have some heavy energy. All right. My best wishes. Talk to you guys later, and ciao for now.